Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 188 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I am your host, Mike Ialon, CEO of Greek University. I am a speaker and a two-time author. Our second book is called From Letters to Leaders, Redefining New Member Education and Leveraging Belonging to Eliminate Hazing. That's available right now, so go and buy that book today on Amazon. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring fraternity and sorority leaders together, as well as college students together. Fun fact, this year has been Greek University's best year by far in terms of number of programs around the country, both in person and virtual programs. And I just want to say thank you for being invested in making your college campuses safer, for growing your organizations larger than ever before, and for allowing us to inspire your students. Because today we are recording on Thanksgiving, and I'm so grateful for all of you, our listening audience. 2022 is going to be absolutely incredible. So thank you so much for being along for the ride. Now, our next guest, MichelJoy DelRe, now president of New Century Productions, Inc., has consulted and coached in more than 20,000 individual sessions with CEOs, executive directors, and entrepreneurs. She has the expertise to take a startup to their first million and beyond. Her coaching provides CEOs a space of confidentiality and integrity in which they produce more with grace and ease. Clients take their business on a game in life and have more aliveness and joy along the way. Welcome to the show, MichelJoy.
Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. Today is Thanksgiving, and I'm just so grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that our listeners are listening today. So thank you so much for being a part of the show. I wanted to make sure that our listeners know a little bit about your background. I know you decided on CSU Long Beach for your undergraduate experience. So why was CSU Long Beach the right place for you?
Well, I actually began college at El Camino Community College in Torrance as a PE major. And then I switched to psychology as my major at Cerritos Community College when we moved there after I was married and my daughter was born. And then it was when she was about 2 years old that I enrolled at California State University at Long Beach. And at that time, I didn't have any distinctions about college. Today, in today's world, you can go on the internet, you can find out a lot of information, but we didn't have that at that time. And so, I went by personal references and asking people. And then I took a tour of the campus and I felt really good about what I saw, how I felt. And I've always trusted my intuition. And so I made that my home for my college education. But the deciding factor actually had to do with my daughter, because by the time I went there, she was 2 years old. And the environment of the Isabel Patterson Child Development Center that's located on campus was so ideal. For me, it was like a working laboratory in psychology, which was my field. And each person there was so passionate about how children were cared for and communicated with. I learned a whole new way of communicating. I learned a whole new way of being able to really listen and hear and then speak to what was wanted and needed at that time. And so I felt like I had a place where I could trust people with my child and be able to learn and grow myself at the same time.
Got it. Well, that makes a lot of sense. It sounds like a wonderful experience. So I'm glad that worked out so well. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about small businesses and entrepreneurial ventures, because so many college students that I talk to, they really want to get into their own business. They have their own idea for a product or a service. But the reality is that many small businesses and entrepreneurial ventures eventually fail, usually relatively quickly within the first year or two. And what they are left with is a choice. They can either blame themselves, which means blame their creativity, their experience, their research, their preparation, their depth of relationships, their financial backing, structures and systems in their organization, or might be easier to just blame the economy, for example. And so you believe that small business owners, that they need a mindset of abundance. What is a mindset of abundance?
Well, before I answer that, I just want to acknowledge that about 2/3 of new startup companies fail. So, it's not unusual for it to fail, but it can be a failure on the way to success. So a mindset of abundance is one that includes failure as well. That there will be breakdowns, but you as a person, as a human being, don't have to be a breakdown about the breakdown. So a mindset of abundance can include everything that is there, look at it, and then choose what your next steps are. That title of having a mindset of abundance came from the Stephen Covey bestseller book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And it describes the belief that there are enough resources and successes to share with others. There are enough.
Yeah.
There is enough. And developing an abundance mindset helps individual people achieve a full and satisfying life. Because the alternate is that we internalize and make our individual self wrong or bad, or the economy bad or wrong, or other people or situations. Instead, what you can do in having the abundance consciousness is to recognize that there is more to go.
Mm-hmm. I really love that.
Get stopped.
Yeah.
You can actually expand.
I love that for 2 reasons. Number one, my first year in business, this goes back to 2015. It's now been 6 years, but my first year in business was tough. It was rocky. And I think I just accepted the fact that the first 6 months to a year were going to be really, really tough. And sure enough, there were failures along the way, but I just persevered. I just said, I know this business is going to be successful and I just need to keep at it. And so luckily I kept going, whereas many other people might just give up and just say, forget it, I'm just going to try something else. So I like it from that perspective. I also like it too from the perspective of, there are other competitors that are out there that do the same thing that Greek University does. We're similar. And I always say that as well. I think there's more than enough business for all of us to be very, very happy. And I embrace all of my competitors. I mean, you'll see me hugging my competitors when we go to a conference next week in Dallas, Texas. I will literally give them a hug and tell them how happy I am to see them. And other people from the outside might be looking at that going, well, that's really weird. Like, why is Mike being so friendly to his competitors? And the reality is there is so much business out there for all of us to be very, very happy. Ultimately, it's okay. Sometimes they end up getting a particular campus maybe that I'm working on and I don't get it, and then vice versa, right? But in the end, I think as long as our customers are happy, as long as the fraternity and sorority community is growing, there's going to be an abundance of business for all of us. So I'm okay with that.
Well, you're right on, Michael, because if you take a global perspective, there's 750 billion people on this planet.
Yeah.
There's enough for all of us.
Absolutely. More than enough. More than enough. Now, you're the president and chief spiritual officer for New Century Productions, Inc. You were the first consultant on the staff of Consulting Alliance, and you were engaging entrepreneurs in conversations that focused on their big dreams. Today, you have consulted and coached in more than 20,000 individual sessions. So how can we shift from hoping to eliminate stress in our very busy lives to knowing that stress can actually be transformational, which eventually will lead to success?
Take a nice deep breath on that one, because that's what I practice on an ongoing basis. Taking a breath, becoming conscious of what that stress is, because stress doesn't just show up. It actually has to do with our belief system, our emotional system, and our experience. And so stress is actually defined as a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from very demanding circumstances. So you can either collapse and cave in about the circumstances and virtually give up, or you can become bigger. That's what I coach people to do, to draw on the resources that they have within them that they may never have tapped into before, or they may have not seen as a strength, or that it was called for in different circumstances. So what I do is I call them into a framework of thinking that gives them access to trying out ideas, being more expressive, being more creative. And in that process, they find ways to be able to accomplish results that they hadn't even thought of before, or that come to them. It looks like it's from out of the blue sometimes, but it's right on target for what it is that they're committed to and what actions they're taking to and the direction they're going in.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting. I mean, certainly I know that stress is going to be a part of my business from time to time, but I think what you're saying is that basically accept it, know that it's going to come your way and grow as a result of the stress that you're feeling, essentially. Am I right?
Absolutely. Statistically, more than 33% of people experience stress at any one point in time.
Got it.
And I actually think it's 100%.
Yeah,
Now
I
that
agree with you.
we don't verbalize it most of the time. We hunker down and we get more intentional, but we actually are experiencing stress that is causing us to take that kind of an action.
Mm-hmm.
So when we internalize it with a negative conversation about ourselves, like I'm not good enough, that can be a stop. And we diminish our capabilities and our intelligence and our willingness to take further actions and further risks. But when we have the same experience of stress and change our internal dialogue and acknowledge the feeling and then take the new actions, we experience being empowered. That's the difference.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, I'm sure there's this question that you probably ask your coaching clients often. And I guess my question is, why is it important to ask it? The question is, what does having it all mean for you? Why is that an important question?
Well, I could guess what you want to do or what the end result is, but that doesn't necessarily mean it is really what you want. So asking the question just brings it up to the surface. Mm-hmm. I had a client, for instance, who was a married woman. She was originally from India. She was about 5'2", slight build, and an Indian accent. When she spoke softly. And she had a business that was doing, at that time, she'd been in business for a couple of years, and at that time, she was doing about $200,000 in gross revenue a year. Her vision for the year was to grow it to $300,000. Well, we had this kind of conversation about what she really wanted, and I got clear about what actions needed to be taken from her to really call her into being more of a leader. And when she took them, she had one coaching session. When she took those actions, she came back within a month and she had already accomplished what her year's goal was. She had a $300,000 year already. So then I had to ask her the question again, Michael, now what do you want? Because it's personal. When you tap into what's personal, people become authentic. And when they're authentic, then they live from what their dream is. It becomes their passion. They take actions that are consistent with that. Mm-hmm. And what she wanted at that point, and she spoke it very softly because she was a little timid about actually saying it out loud. She said, what I really want is to have $1 million business. And so I said, great, let's do that. So what I'm clear about is you can create what you want. It may not happen in the time frame, it may. When she got into action, and we did a lot of coaching throughout the year, and she signed up to be a woman-owned business with the federal government and got bigger contracts, she accomplished not having $1 million business by the end of a year. She had a $3 million business. Wow. That's and one of the pieces that I had as coaching for her, because of what's important to her, she wanted to be able to be home at night for dinner with her husband. She had been working till 9 o'clock at night, and they wanted to start a family. So I made that part of my coaching. The quality of your life has to be a part of your business, or your business doesn't work.
Mm. Wow, that's really powerful. What a great story to tell. What a great success story there. And I talk about this all the time with the college students that I'm talking to, which is, what is your dream for this student organization? And let's just go around the room and let's talk about your dream. And when you say that, it's so interesting because the college students, many times they think, kind of small. They don't have these big dreams. And I keep pushing them. I'm like, no, no, no. I need you to think bigger. And suddenly you start to pull out of them what it is that they really want. And so I would encourage other students to have that conversation on a regular basis. Number one, because you want your members to dream a little bit about what it is that they want. But number two, you'll figure out what motivates them, because everybody in the organization is motivated by something different. And so if you can capture that, what their dream is, then throughout the year how to motivate them and how to keep them on track. But you got to ask the question, because if you don't ask the question, you don't know how to motivate them.
Right. You've had those experiences growing up where people were telling you what to do,
Right.
And you had the pushback, the decision not to do it, or not wanting to do it, or doing it reluctantly. You don't have the results that show up then out of that.
Right. Totally. Now, you believe that the most important thing that a coach provides is the ability to listen to a player's soul, which is your deeper purpose in life, that you catch and re-energize that vision while holding them accountable for activating the dream and taking bold new actions. Why do you believe that everybody should have a coach?
Well, first I have to qualify that, because should is a word I don't use. And so there's a saying, don't should on anybody, because you're actually putting on top of them what your expectations are, not necessarily what they really want. And so what I ask people to do, though, is to really get clear about what their purpose is. Why do they want to do what they say they want to do? Football players have a team coach who can see from the big picture when individual players are in the game. They see from the overview of the angles of the game. They see what the other team is doing. They see all those details that the player who's in the game can't see. So that's what I do. That's what a business coach can provide, because I can see from the big picture of what it is you say that you're committed to, the actions that you're taking. We work with statistics and measurable results. So what those are that are showing up each week as we have coaching sessions from week to week. And then we look and measure, where are you on the continuum of what you say that you're committed to? And if you're not in action, then there's something that is stopping you. So we drill down into what that is to uncover it. Most often is a belief about what their capability is. And when we can uncover it and diffuse it, and then replace it by a declaration of what's possible, then people get lit up and turned on all over again. It's like starting the game from brand new scratch, and they get into the game, of their own business, with more energy, more velocity, and more enthusiasm.
Makes total sense to me. Now, a lot of college students are listening right now. They have some kind of a business idea. It could be for a product, could be for a service. But the reality is that many college students, including me, when I was in college, I was totally broke. So what is your advice for college students that have a business idea to get moving on a shoestring budget?
Well, that's a really great question. And there are organizations that you can start with Fund Me page if you have an idea and you get it in writing. I work with people at that level. And then there are organizations that can fund startups as well. So, it's an opportunity to get really articulate about what your idea is, get it on paper, get it so that you have a working model, and be able to then communicate it and to people who could invest in your company. Or invest in the product to be able to start a company with.
Got it. Makes total sense. Now, earlier, I kind of alluded to the fact that college students need to start dreaming a little bit bigger. Why do you think it's important for people to dream big?
Well, you can just take a look at some of the examples of people and see what they've been able to accomplish, not just in growing a business, but the difference that they make as well. You know, I was very inspired this last week by Sarah Blakely, who originated the Spanx company.
Hmm.
She started with one idea. You know, she made her own product. You know, she started with the basics on a shoestring budget, just like what you're talking about.
Hmm.
And just recently, this year, the brand was valued at $1.2 billion in
Wow.
a Blackstone deal. But you know, there's a lot of work that goes into that, you know, in the process, a lot of learning that takes place in how to run a business and what it is that's wanted and needed by your customers. So that's where a coach really comes in, because you know, when you start expanding the business idea, it can look like you're doing everything all at once.
Hmm.
And it really takes having rigor in breaking it down into actionable steps that are measurable on a regular basis, so that you have confidence. You build that confidence as you go. You also build out having a team of people as you grow, and you build having profitability as you grow. So all of those are part of what goes into starting with the idea.
Hmm. Yeah, I love her. I've seen her many times on Shark Tank, and it's
Yeah.
amazing how big her business has gotten. And it did just start with one idea, one product. Now she's got a variety of different products that she works with. I know she does like the skinny girl, you know, drinks, the martinis, and other things that she's making. So she really has built out a full array of products underneath Spanx. But yeah, I mean, what a success story! What an amazing product, and it just goes to show what one product can do. It's just a tremendous success story. Now, why you talk about using a vision board? Why is it important for college students to use a vision board?
Well, a vision board gives you access to both hemispheres of the brain. So we normally in school, what we're doing is we're operating from the left side of our brain,
Mhm.
you know, the logical, sequential thinking. The right side of the brain is inspired by pictures and ideas and emotion. And so when you have a vision board, you actually inspire yourself for what it is that you're bringing into existence. Quite often people don't have the idea really clear to begin with. And so having the inspiration opens it up more and more and more until the idea becomes really clear. When it becomes crystal clear, then you can start putting some structure to it. And then you can start taking actions that are more consistent with building.
Wow. Well, I learned something new today. I really had no idea about that. So that's really great. I'm glad I asked the question. The other question that I have for you is, why is it critical for college students to write down their future goals?
The same thinking, right? Integrating both right and left hemispheres of the brain.
Okay.
When you're writing them down, you begin to actualize it. You know, you take it out of the thought and your head, and you take an action. You're beginning to actualize it into the world.
Got it. All right, very good. Well, hopefully the college students are going to take both of those things into consideration and start using both of those tools, because I do think it's going to help them quite a bit. They might not think so, but I think they're going to see some really good actions as a result of it. So I think that's fantastic. Now, you are in the Laguna Woods area of California, which is an absolutely stunning part of the country.
Yeah.
And we do love good food here at the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. So I want to know, if I'm in your neck of the woods in Laguna Woods over there, where should I go to get a great meal?
Well, I would highly recommend the King's Fish House.
Okay.
The address is 24001 Avenida de la Carlota in Laguna Hills.
All right.
You know, it's right by the Laguna Hills Fashion Mall.
Got it. Okay. Well, what should I order over there? What's your favorite?
Well, fish, salmon.
All right. listen, I love it. I mean, I live in Nashville, Tennessee, so you have to understand, I
Oh,
don't have any oceans. We have some lakes here, but that's about it. So anytime I get the opportunity to get some fresh fish, you better believe I'm going to take advantage of it. So that sounds like a spectacular recommendation. So thank you so much for that. And if our listeners today, if they want to get coaching with you, or maybe they want to book you to speak, where should they go in order to connect with you?
well, great, Michael. For one thing, I always offer a complimentary 15-minute call with me. So they're welcome to contact me directly. My office number is 949-305-6380. And they can go to my website, MichelJoy.com. It's spelled MichelJoy.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. Since you're now being shown on LinkedIn, they can find me under Michelle Joy.
Fantastic. MichelJoy, this has been so much fun. I really appreciate you taking time today to talk to our listening audience. This has been absolutely wonderful. To our listeners out there, please like and share this conversation with others that you think might be interested in some of MichelJoy's services and some of the great things that she had to say here on the podcast. And we will see you on another episode of Fraternity Foodie. Thanks so much, MichelJoy. Enjoy your Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Michael. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you
Of
so much.
course. My pleasure.